Damn, it's almost been 3.5 months since I haven't made an actual video. Well, I mean, there's the April Fool's video, but that took no effort to make at all. What if I just lost my airstrap the whole time I was gone? I'll have to resort to drastic measures if I don't have it, like changing my identity online. No. Don't be so dramatic, Jugs. Get yourself together and focus. Just type whatever comes out of your head.
A few minutes later.
Wow, I almost forgot how quick time passes by when you use transitions. Let's take a look at this script. Hey, wait a minute. There's just the whole lyrics to the Neverhood song. What a waste of a transition. However, this does give me a chance to talk about an underappreciated game of the 90s. Let's delve into this world of clay known as the Neverhood. The Neverhood, released in 1996 for the PC, is a point-and-click adventure game that uses stop-motion claymation to do all the animations for this game. Now, this is unique because 1. Point-and-click games are kind of a niche genre during this era of gaming. PC gaming at this time was dominated by first-person shooters like Quake, Half-Life, and strategy games like StarCraft and Warcraft. Games of these magnitude cast a shadow over the Neverhood, hence it never got the recognition it needed. Another reason it is a hidden gem is, as I mentioned before, it used claymation as its assets. For those who don't know how claymation is done, it is basically using clay models as your characters and a camera to take photos of every little movement they do. You then compile every photo you took to make a video out of it, since each photo is a frame of a video to be used. Think something like Aardman Animation's Wallace and Gromit is a perfect example for claymation. In the case of the Neverhood, everything is made from clay, both the characters and the sets. I read somewhere that the developers of the Neverhood Inc. used up over 3 tons of clay to make the entire game, which compared to Curse of the Were-Rabbit and Aardman Animation movie, used up 2.8 tons of plasticine clay, which shows how much work is into putting and making a claymation. The person that conceived this idea of the game was none other than Doug TenNapel. Wait, so you're telling me that this guy's last name is not TenNapel? Oh, it's TenNapel. Well, there's no ghostwriter involved with this. I'm the one that wrote this script. Okay. I'll make sure this mistake doesn't happen. I'll make sure, because I don't want Mr. TenNapel to see me make a mistake like that ever again. Okay? I'll make that correction right now. That was the producer that called me. He says that the last name for the creator of the game is Doug TenNapel. So Doug, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I promise I won't call you TenNapels ever again. I'll call you Mr. TenNapel. Alright? Well, cool? Let's continue on with the review. For those who don't know, Doug was part of Shiny Entertainment, who are known for developing the Earthworm Jim series, with Doug best known for creating the titular character himself. After leaving Shiny Entertainment in '95, he formed his own company, the Neverhood Inc., with several other Shiny employees. Here's where Steven Spielberg comes into play. Yes, that's Steven Spielberg, your ears are not deceiving you. Spielberg recently started DreamWorks Interactive, and he needed a project that was different compared to the games that were out at the time. TenNapel pitched Spielberg his idea of making a video game using claymation. Spielberg, being the creative outlet he is, accepted TenNapel's idea, and that is how the Neverhood was made. In the bonus clips for the game, you can see Mr. Spielberg trying the game out for itself and clearly enjoying the game.
The Neverhood. Steven Spielberg says he's thrilled with how the game turned out.
You see? He's having a grand old time. So what exactly is the Neverhood? Glad you asked, fellow viewer. The Neverhood is a surreal landscape made of clay. However, it is ominously deserted without giving a reason why. This is where your character, Clayman, such a thought-provoking name, right, comes to play. The game starts with Clayman waking up in an empty room, and immediately you're treated to the appeal, or to the bane of some people, of the game. Puzzles upon puzzles. This game is a point-and-clicker, meaning everything Clayman does is done through the mouse. So go ahead and ditch your $70 Razer keyboard for this game, which I don't have because it never crossed my mind at all, but that's besides the point. Clicking an object triggers context-sensitive moments within the game. Something as simple as clicking a button to mixing chemicals. Anything can be done if Clayman can interact with it. You technically cannot die in this game by misclicking an object. Well, there is this one part of the game. Yeah, just don't click on that pitfall whenever you see it. The story of the Neverhood is explained through discs that can be found throughout the world. Once you put said videotapes into the teleprompter, you're greeted with none other than Willie Trombone, who goes on explaining the events that happened before Clayman woke up.
Me Willie Trombone.
Once you collect all the tapes, a cohesive story can be made out. Long story short, Hoborg is essentially the creator of the Neverhood with the help of Willie and Bill, a bipedal robot that can be manned. However, Hoborg became lonely as he was the only resident of the New World besides Willie and Bill. With his crown, Hoborg created his first son Clog, who strangely looks a lot like Clayman. Hoborg didn't count Clog for being avaricious because immediately he tries to take Hoborg's crown. So you're telling me you were immediately brought to this world and you're already acting like a little shit to begin with? Ungrateful little bitch? However, this is all for night because in the middle of his thoughts, Clock took the crown away from Hoborg like the little shit he is. Turns out the crown is the main power source for Hoborg, and without it, he can't function and remains powered off. Clog then placed the crown on his head. However, he was not compatible with the life force within the crown. Like oil on water, Clog transformed into the beastly state we see him throughout the game. While on the other hand, Willie noticed the life seed Hoborg created before his crown got stolen. This seed gave birth to Clayman, who was left in the room where the game started. It is now Clayman's job to defeat Clog and save the Neverhood. I don't know why Willie could at least try to save the crown, but then again, he's not the brightest bulb in the box to take on a grand task. That is the main story of the game, but there is a huge background story that is shown through the Hollow Records. It is basically a prequel before Hoborg created the Neverhood. It is a huge walk to go through and it takes a good number of screens to pass by till you reach the end. It's not like you can avoid it either because at the end of the hall there is a disc that shows another part of Willie's message. However, me being the dumbass that I am, I forgot to turn on the lights in the Hollow Records so that I can see the writings all over the wall. Otherwise it's just me going through a long and dark hallway. I think I might have played some music in the process to prevent me from going insane just by hearing Clayman's steps. This is just my first playthrough, can you really blame me? Throughout your journey, you are treated to many FMV cutscenes throughout the game, of course fitted with the slapstick humor of Doug TenNapel to add some charm to the game. Kinda reminds me of the old cartoons I used to watch as a kid. The game has no shame to show its humor to its audience, ranging from eye poking, falling down a set of stairs, and of course, that long belch scene that lasts for a good couple of minutes. Hey Clay! Oh.
A few minutes later.
Oh look, it's finally done. I swore I was going to close this game because I thought I broke the game for a second. The environments within the game are surreal, and that is probably the best way to describe it because I probably didn't use the thesaurus to write the script to begin with. Even though that it is made from clay, you can tell the artists put their time and effort to make the sets as if it was something from a dream. The animations are surprisingly fluid too. To be honest, it feels like I am watching an Aardman animation film rather than playing a game. If a game can bridge the way how a film feels like, then this game will be a perfect candidate just on that alone. This helps the game portray characters in the story well because there is hardly any dialogue in the cutscenes. However, when there are moments of dialogue within the game, I can associate the voice of the characters they are playing easily. Willie sounds like a dunce with a slow cadence of speech.
If you watching this, then you do good. Really happy.
Clog sounds like your typical evil villain once you finally hear him speak.
I'm sorry. Did I frighten you?
And Hoborg sounds like a god.
Come on, Clayman. We've got a Neverhood to finish.
The game switches back and forth between third person and first person perspectives. When you're outside of any building, you're in first person view, but when inside rooms and doing puzzles, you're in the typical third person view. One gripe about this perspective shift is how grainy some of these shots look compared to the third person perspective aspect of the game. Don't know why there's such a disparity between the two, but it's probably compressed to keep the game playable for PCs during this time. But that's just a baseless assumption that I made, so who knows if there's an actual reason for it, not like it takes away from the game. The puzzles in this game can range from obvious to a bit mind-bending. Unlike many point-and-click games where you have an inventory to look in, this game doesn't. Even though Clayman stores a lot of stuff into himself, he only pulls the most necessary items needed for this situation, which eliminates fumbling through the inventory just to look for one item. To be honest, this change in quality of life in this genre saves me from a headache or two. One gripe about the puzzle is how much backtracking you must do in order to find the answers to the puzzle needed for the game. This backtrack is far beyond the levels of Metroidvania games. We're talking about puzzles that are found in the final legs with solutions that are found in the beginning of the game. Like for example, this puzzle where you have to input a 12-code password. Now you're probably asking, where do I get this password? All the way near at the cannon at the beginning of the game through some random corner of the world. It's like the password is given to you fully in the first place. You must physically click the panel in order to get all the characters you need for the password. Luckily I was recording this portion of the game. Then again, I record my whole playthroughs of any game I review, or else I have to write everything down like what I did right here. Notice how I made a note of one of the symbols that says noise? Well, when you keep on clicking through the panel, you'll find a symbol that makes a weird noise than usual. This is important because if you forget that noise when inputting this password, you would have to go all the way back just to figure out where that noise is at. Don't even get me started with inputting the password. It is a chore to input because it's not like you've given a number/symbol pad to put them in. You must wait till a section cycles to the symbol you've written down, then you click the button to hold the symbol right in its place. Probably one of the more painful experiences I had in gaming. #first world problems. This isn't the only puzzle that does this form of backtracking too. Solutions to puzzles are found in the most archaic of places. For the shrinking potion section, the solution is found in a place when using the wall writer. One person would think what's the reason for this, and they just flat out ignore it until they realize they needed to progress on with the game. It puts a stop sign in morale for some form of progression, and thank God I had a walkthrough with me when going through some rough patches in the game. Most of the puzzles I had to take photos of them in order to remember what the solution was, especially in this tile puzzle to lower Bill's teddy bear. I've counted like 20 photos in total to save the hassle of memorizing where each symbol is at the tiles. However, the solutions you have cannot help you in another playthrough because it is randomized for each playthrough. At least I get to save space on my phone after all the photos I took of in this game. There's a bright side to every negative, I guess. To be honest, it's most likely a way to pad out the game since it's short to begin with. It took me about 5 hours to beat. Without a walkthrough on my first playthrough, it would be more around 8 to 10 hours of game time. Sure, with a walkthrough since you have the solutions to every puzzle on hand. With all that stuff, let's discuss the ending of the game. Just so you know, this is spoiler territory, so I'll add a timestamp so you can skip over the spoiler and on to the next section in the game. Don't worry, I'll wait for you. Okay, time's up. There are 2 endings to this game, but you can't just load up a previous save so you can do the other ending. Once Clayman infiltrates the castle at the cost of Bill and Willie's life, he finally confronts Clog. Depending on what choice you make, Clayman either takes the crown away from Clog and becomes evil like himself once he puts on the crown, therefore not saving Hoborg, or you can save Hoborg and eliminate Clog through his own mistake.
You saved this world, and
Die, you old fool!
In this ending, Hoborg creates more people to live in the Neverhood, making it a thriving place where people can be at peace. Kind of a nice way to close off the game since Clayman is no longer alone in the world. Now this is the part where I include fun facts in the video because I want to pad out the video to get some of that sweet view time. My Hustle game has been kinda weak if you can't tell. I mean, sheesh, look, not enough clickbait in my thumbnails or titles like many other YouTubers. So where do I start? Let me think. I got it! We can go over the sales numbers of this game. Despite positive reviews to the game, it only sold around 42,000 copies, which is terrible to think about, hence why copies on eBay are expensive as hell. The only way I was able to play is because of the many abandonware websites available for me to use. This sales figure is attributed to the fact that point-and-click games had lost their luster in the late 90s. As a happy ending to this, the game started a devoted cult following. So devoted that Doug TenNapel even created a Kickstarter to fund the spiritual successor to the Neverhood, Armor Krog. I have not tried it out myself, but I heard mixed reviews about it. Guess that is one game to add to my huge backlog. The Neverhood was released on a console, believe it or not, only in Japan however, under the name Clayman, The Mystery in the Neverhood. The game had some changes which infamously removed the Hall of Records portion of the game and putting all the backstory in the instruction manual. Now that you think about it, with this version's long loading times, it would be a pain to go through 20 something screens just to get some backstory on a disc from Willie. That is quality of life change right there. Or maybe the company doing the translations got lazy and didn't have enough time to translate all the text into Japanese. Once again, I'm talking out of my ass. I never played this version myself, so I'm relying on the anecdotal evidence of people who actually played it for themselves. I'll actually leave this opinion in your guys' hands, because this other fun fact will blow your mind. The one surprising fact about this game is not how the game was made, it is more in the realm of how it influenced an anime director. It may or may not influence the anime Kaiba. Masaki Yusa, now known for creating Devilman Crybaby, was the director behind Kaiba. The reason why I said the Neverhood may or may not have influence because researching the subject matter comes up to nothing. The Wikipedia article for the Neverhood makes some mention about it, however it desperately needs citations since there has been no evidence that has been quoted from Yusa-san himself. However, the anime does take a lot of its influence of the game if you see the show for yourself. Now keep in mind, I have not seen the entire series yet, so some of the conclusions I might be drawing are only based on the first 5 episodes. Just by looking at the environments in the show, you can see how surreal they are and almost look like they come straight out of the environments of the Neverhood. Hell, even the setup for the show is like how the Neverhood started. The titular character of the show, Kaiba, no not Saddle Kaiba, this Kaiba right here, he wakes up in a room with no memories of anything relating to him like Clayman. After that, this is where the entire research falls flat on its head. The story takes on a different narrative at this point. Where the Neverhood is more lighthearted and comedic in its tone, Kaiba takes a more somber to sometimes a depressing approach with this story. So until there is a solid evidence that the director fully says he was inspired by the Neverhood, for now this connection is going to have to be put on hold because there is a lack of evidence. With that out the way, let's put a lovely bow tie to finish off this review. The surreal setup for the Neverhood is quite unique because it's not like any other game you have seen during the 90s at the time, taking more of an unconventional approach of using claymations instead of using 3D graphics to form its game. Henceforth, it gives the game a little bit more room in order to show its comedic purposes. Not to mention, this game has aged pretty well because of its art style that it chose to use. Now that you think about it, there hasn't been any other game that uses claymation besides Armor Cross, which I mentioned before, but that's later on, but I'm talking about in the 90s. The story is simple at best if you don't look at the backstory, but it's easy to digest it if you look at it for yourself. However, the short gameplay time and the obtuse puzzles can turn off some people from playing this game in the first place. If the game were to be remade, I would give it some quality of life changes to fix some of the weaker points the game has that some of the people would not like about the game. Otherwise, the game is the best of its kind because of how forward-thinking Doug TenNapel is when it comes to innovating games. So with that, the Neverhood gets a out of 10.